the small town that I and so many others love. However, Emmett is at a crossroads. The large-scale expansion of the entire Treasure Valley growth is inevitable, and we are faced with the opportunity to choose what that growth looks like. I recently read a statistic: by the year 2040, the population of the Treasure Valley will exceed 1 million. If we do not want to get the dregs of that population boom, we need to appeal to families who value education and still want the small town life. A news article published in the past few months recently ranked the top 10 worst places to live in Idaho, and we saw that Emmett was ranked number 2, right behind Weiser. We can't expect to appeal to the best of the population if we have the worst reputation. One of the categories used in that evaluation was education, which makes sense if you think about it. The health of the community is intrinsically tied to the health of its schools. With support and education in our school facilities, we stand to improve the community in all areas, extending from educational, economic, and social to infrastructure, crime rate, and services. So what do we want? Who do we want as our neighbors next door? Who do we want taking care of our roads, staffing our police and emergency positions, caring for our medical needs, and providing goods and services? Do we want to attract families who value education, or those residents who are fine with settling for inferior facilities and education funding that ranks among the lowest in the area and in the nation? Do we want people who choose to live here and are proud to enroll their children in our schools, or do we want people who are forced to live here simply because this is the least expensive tax option and are satisfied with the bare minimum for education? To put it bluntly and state the obvious, the primary concern of many in the community is the cost of a bond, the cost of buildings and the impact that will have on our taxes. With that in mind, we would like a potential bond to be planned in a fiscally responsible manner. Yet at the same time, we don't want to cut corners, and we aren't interested in going the cheap route. My understanding is that Emmett has tried the cheap route before, and you can find that result on 12th Street. They are the large round buildings, have about a zillion unfortunate nicknames, kind of hard to miss. Instead, we are interested in a quality solution that will have a maintenance plan and will serve as a solution for years to come. In short, we want it done right. As I said, I grew up in Emmett, and my family continues to live here because we choose to, not because we have to. My husband works from home for a tech company that is based in Minnesota, and my work as an author is quite mobile. We could live anywhere we want, yet we choose to live here. There is really only one thing tying us here, and that's our heart for Emmett and nothing else. I became involved in this committee because I want my children and all of the children in Emmett to have the best education possible. I'm not satisfied with the last of the last. I'm not satisfied with mediocre. I want the best, and I want it here in Emmett. My definition of the best is that the students of this district have the facilities and tools they need in order to reach their best and greatest potential. At this point, as you will see in our presentation, the current facilities are standing in the way of that potential. I don't want to leave the town I love in order to be a good parent and give my children adequate facilities to provide them the education they need and deserve. We could easily move to somewhere else that provides great opportunities and beautiful buildings for their students, or I could do as many frustrated parents have already done and find different options or homeschool my children. But day after day, year after year, I choose to stay and send my children to schools that I'm not even sure are safe. Why do I do it? Why am I even now missing getting to watch my little boy play flag football in order to speak to you tonight? Because I love Emmett, and this is not just about my own kids. It's about all the children of Emmett and the future generation of our community. To me, leaving right now would be the equivalent of getting on the lifeboat while leaving everybody else to drown. I'm standing here not just for my own children, but for the entire community of children that deserve to attend schools they can be proud of. I don't want to leave. And I'm here in faith that deep down at its core, Emmett values my children's education enough to see the need and will rise to meet it. The way to keep Emmett a great small town community is not by stifling education funding or saying that schools should just make do with what they've got. That would instead have the opposite effect of turning Emmett into the ugly stepsister of the Treasure Valley. Already many families I personally know have removed the children from the Emmett Public Schools or have chosen not to move here at all simply because of the schools. That's the only reason. If we don't provide the best, we will lose the best. Instead, the solution is to adequately fund our facilities, providing our children the best possible education while appealing to families who share our values, so that we can grow while maintaining the caring small town culture we love. The children we are educating today will end up being the future generation of leaders and community members. It is our hope that we do our job well, so they love Emmett, provide positive contributions to it, and when they are all grown up, they have no reason to leave, but instead stay to take their turn of paying it forward. Tonight, we are inviting you to listen to our committee's assessment of the needs in our district and a proposal for a long-term solution that addresses our district needs. Beyond that, we are asking you to share our dedication and take hold of this opportunity, choosing to take the action necessary to make Emmett a healthy community that produces well-educated students who contribute greatly to our society. Before I hand things off to one of my facilities committee friends, I'd like to share one last thing. Over the summer, we had some family visiting from out of state. Since they were originally from here, we chatted about the current school conditions in Emmett and the difficulties involved in fixing them. At one point, another person said, it was also a former Emmett graduates, he said, "Well, what do you expect from Emmett?" I've heard other stories of visitors to our town's high school sporting events having the same reaction when encountering the condition of our facilities. Well, what do you expect from Emmett? It's not a compliment, but it got me thinking, what do I expect from Emmett? I expect a town that will work together to overcome the differences for the sake of its children. I expect a community to invest what little they have into education and achieve great things. I expect our small town to dream big and put quality and necessity above the bottom line. I expect Emmett to help provide a good education that prepares my children for college and for life in general. I expect the community that can teach my children that even though you don't agree, you can still be kind and respectful. I expect Emmett to plan for, work hard for, and pass a comprehensive quality school bond that sets Emmett schools up for success for the next 20 years. I expect a community that will potentially provide new buildings and adequate facilities to meet the needs at every level. I expect a hometown that invests in my children, cheers on their successes, and claims them as their own when they achieve great things. I expect a community that is a beacon for those around us for how to treat others and how to do education right. I expect a community that provides an education to be proud of, so that my children can hold their head up high when they say, I went to school in Emmett, Idaho. And finally, I expect a community of wide, welcome, open arms, so that when my successful Emmett children are adults, they can come home proud. That is what I expect of Emmett. And tonight, we're asking you to help us plan for that proud tomorrow.
Thank you.
Brooke White.
Hold on a second, Brooke. Did we have a list or is this continuing of the?
They're on the committee.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Brooke White, have two children who go to school here in Emmett, one at the middle school, one out of Shadow Butte. I'm a small business owner in the area, and my husband and I have lived here. I've been here 25 years, he's been here his whole life, so we have roots here. At our first presentation in May, the enrollments at Emmett School District were 2,678. Now this year's enrollments are 2,690. At the start of the 2017-2018 school year, the enrollments were 2,573. That was a growth of 105 new students from 2017 school year to the 2017-18 school year to the 2018-19 school year. So within 1 year, we grew 105 students. That growth was mainly kindergarten to third grade. This year, the enrollments at the middle school have surpassed the projected growth of 722 students to 732 students currently enrolled. The high school has surpassed its projected growth as well. It was projected that the high school enrollments would be 725 students, but it has rang in at 747 students this year. The school district has hired staff and teachers to accommodate some growth with the levy that just recently passed, but we still face an issue of space, overcrowding, and the need for added classrooms. With looking at the future growth, we can expect enrollments close to 3,000 students in our district within a few short years, and that will all need new and upgraded facilities. Right now, Carberry is at capacity and Shadow Butte is not far behind. With this expected growth, our district will need 15 more elementary classrooms within recent years. Another concern is gym space. As it is right now with limited gyms in our district, our student sports program starts their days at 5:45 in the morning, and some don't leave until as late as 9 p.m. And this still does not satisfy the need for all the teams. As you can see by the projected growth over the next 5 years, and the fact that we are currently lacking in gym space, there are current and future needs that must be addressed now.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I say something real quick?
Mhm.
Just a clarification on, if you scroll back to the Carberry, one more. That 521 projected is 549 and current is 521 does not include preschool because they're just started, so they weren't in those numbers. So our numbers will exceed the 549 when we add the preschool in there, just so you're aware. We didn't drop this year at Carberry, so just wanted to make sure you're aware. I'm not sure what it'll be.
Good evening. I am Shelley Keller. I am a almost 12-year resident of Emmett High School, or of Emmett. I sent 3 of my kids to Emmett High School. They all graduated from here. My husband retired after 20 years in the Air Force, and we had lived all over the country. When we were looking for a place to retire, the small town feel was something that was really important to us, but also near enough to social and sporting and the airport and things like that. And Emmett was really a hidden gem. And we are so blessed to be here. In fact, the empty nest is happening for us, and we decided to stay. We just built a home, and we're here for the long haul. I've been asked to address specifically some of the needs of the middle school. I am a substitute teacher in the school district, and so I spend time in all the buildings. And one of my actual least favorite, no offense, Mr. Weiniger, is actually the middle school. I have to come equipped with short sleeves, long sleeves, a sweater, and maybe gloves and a scarf, and depending on the season, because one of the most glaring problems at Emmett Middle School is the electrical and the HVAC systems. This ancient panel is probably older than I am. Go ahead. The heating and cooling systems are the main building was built in 1952. The addition was built in 1972. These nifty little swamp coolers on the roof run in only some of the buildings, and they are really loud. And the kids will get real hot in the room, and they'll say, "Can we turn on the swamp cooler?" And they will. And then I have to yell at them to get them to hear. And so there's noise and there's chaos. And then on the other side of the building, then it's melting. And we have windows open in January. And the hot and cold fluctuation is not just an inconvenience, it's really an impediment to their learning. They're not focusing, they're not paying attention, they're sweating, they're freezing, they're leaving the classroom to go get their jackets. The system is old enough that it is impossible to buy parts in any way. Everything has to be machined specifically, which makes costly repairs every time something has to be fixed. It's something that they've got to work on individually like that. Go ahead, advance to the next one. You can just see that things are taped, glued, rusted together, whatever. One of the other problems with Emmett Middle School is that we have what by some is lovingly called vintage, by others is just plain outdated. This is the science lab, which is original to Emmett when it was Emmett High School, which is awesome, except for they can't do actual labs in there because it doesn't meet the current safety codes for eye wash, plumbing, security for their chemicals and stuff like that. So while it makes great scenery, it's really not very effective. And I love this slide because I just want to show you how somebody like decorated the HVAC pipe going, because that makes it look better. Totally. This is their storage area for their chemicals and stuff like this for their science labs. And this has been flooded on several occasions. So the floor is uneven and not right. And that's not a great place to store chemicals, is where things could could possibly be flooded. To keep up with current technology, they've made a really valiant effort. And one of the things that they've done is to retrofit what used to be part of the shop space into their tech space. So notice those desks, they're covered with technology. Actually, they're not. They're virtually learning technology because they don't have the actual tech to work in. So they have a retrofitted room, virtual learning, because they don't have the real stuff. And the next one shows this nifty plastic curtain partitioning it off. So, in an effort to keep up with the technology, we're trying to work within the facilities that we have, and that's, jerry-rigged and taped together at best. The special education facilities in Emmett Middle School are really a challenge. Up until recently, they didn't have an elevator, and so they had to keep those kids pretty separated from the others because they just couldn't get in and out of the building if they had special needs or equipment or whatever. And so they're kind of tucked away in this little space where they rarely see the light of day, and the staff kind of feels that way, that they're tucked away, far away, hidden, and not the kind of integration that most of the parents of kids with special needs really want. If you remember nothing else from my portion about Emmett Middle School, I hope you'll remember this picture. This is the locker and changing area for the hygiene needs for those middle schoolers. We're talking middle schoolers, so we're talking 10 to 14-year-olds, and this is where they have to have diaper changes. It's a hallway. It's a hallway between other places. They have to run and close the doors on each end and, try and get them some privacy and, make do with that, whatever that electrical thing up above. And that is not lacking facilities. That is not poor facilities. That is human dignity. And we're not giving those kids, a privacy and just the human dignity that they might want to have in that time for those kids. Another thing that's really important at Emmett Middle School is the security. They have the drop-off lane in the front, and most of the kids who are dropped off walk around the building to wait in the morning. But this is the main entrance, and in the next slide, you'll see that you can walk right in those doors. Anybody and everybody can walk right in those doors, and not until you pass that set of double doors is there even a window from the office to see who's coming in or who's going. Now there's cameras, but by the time someone happens to look up and see the camera and whatever, that we've missed our opportunity. And if you go right past those vending machines, that's the cafeteria. So anyone, uninvited, whatever, could walk right in the building, right into the cafeteria, right where the students are. So security is a really big need there. This just shows you some of the other things. Bathrooms are in bad condition. Most of them are not ADA compliant, even though they have an elevator now to the upper levels. Not all the facilities there are even able to accommodate them. Now, I am personally vested in the theater programs. I love it. I support it. I love the arts in our schools, and Emmett Middle School is just doing some really awesome things with theater. They did their first musical production this last spring. It was awesome. But the theater, or the auditorium, has such electrical constraints that they can't get any more microphones or any more spotlights. What you see is what you get. That's all they can do. They can't accommodate any more of that to do their productions. The chairs, several of them are wooden, and I've snagged more than one skirt sliding into those pretty ancient wooden chairs, but I'm there for every production. Every time those kids are doing something, I'm there because they need our support. And that's one of the ways we support them: on the ball field, in the theater, and in their classrooms. And if the parents are sitting there bundled up and freezing and the lights, the fuses blow because they can't have another spotlight, that's an unfortunate way to send our kids there. I appreciate your attention. Thank you for listening to our committee and the work that we have done.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jana Drake. I am native to Emmett. My family moved here from Boise in 1975. I am in the graduating class of 1992. Actually, we had the honor of being the first graduating class to go all 4 years to the Dome. I actually married an outsider. I know, not an Emmett guy, the scandal. My husband is actually a commercial airline pilot, and we had the choice to move anywhere. He was flying out of Salt Lake at the time, so he would drive to Boise and then commute to his job. I was working at a hospital in Boise, so we could move anywhere, and I actually talked him to moving back to Emmett when our son was in kindergarten. As our son progressed he started at Shadowview, and as he progressed through the schools, I had the eye-opening experience of seeing how far our schools had slipped and regressed compared to the other schools in the valley, especially as he started competing and we started visiting the other schools. Our son is now graduated, but this committee is still near and dear to my heart because we have 2 other children. We have 1 middle schooler, and believe it or not, we actually have one that just started preschool. So we're in it for a long haul here. And I'm going to talk to you for a little bit about the needs of the high school. So we have outdated buildings. We have still a major security issue, and we're growing. We're outgrowing our building, and sports facilities are an issue. Okay, so our domes were built in 1987. Our current departments, they do not have adequate space or the amenities to support safe or proper learning environment. One of our biggest concerns is the chemistry labs. The space is not big enough for the students, so the students have actually had to move back into the space that was designated for them to do experiments. Which is they cannot have like their personal belongings back there and do experiments. There cannot be the paperwork or their backpacks and everything else. The eye wash stations and everything else is not up to date. So right now they're not doing the experiments that they would like to. They're having to do virtual experiments and other things to try to skirt around those issues to try to get the kids but they're not getting the hands-on experience that they would in a chemistry lab or that they should be able to get in a chemistry lab. This is the storage, and like you can see, like the stuff is just sitting out there on the counters. This is the storage of the lab. It's just, again, not a safe environment for them. These are our lockers. We don't have enough lockers. The lockers are inadequate. They're 30 years old. Many of them don't work. And I can personally attest that there's a lot of damage to people's personal stuff just because it's left in there. There's not enough for the kids to have them. So some kids get them and some kids don't. Unfortunately, it is high school. And so there is a lot of theft and everything else. There's damage to the kids' own personal stuff because, like, when you're the low kid on the totem pole, you don't get a locker for a couple years, and that's not fair. It's not fair to us as parents, and it's not fair to the athletes that, you know, your personal shoes and stuff gets stolen, and we're constantly replacing that simply because there's not enough locker space, or the lockers don't lock or they don't work. Okay, our bathrooms, and this picture actually does not do justice to the bathrooms in the high school. Most of the bathrooms are, they're painted Formica, they're chipped. If you ever hear a comment about the high school, it's gonna be about the bathroom space. They're scary, the tiles chipping, they're in bad shape. And again, same thing as the middle school, the entrance, it wasn't an issue when the schools were built, but it is an issue now, and it's a real issue. And I think that we need to be realistic about this. This is a thing that it's a nationwide issue, and it's a pressing issue, and it's not something that we can be blind about or say it can't happen here or it can't affect our community. And this is straight in the front entrance of our domes, and you go straight up the stairs, And it's like clear through the blue door is before you hit the office. So I mean, you have access clear to the second and the third floor, and actually you can get all the way up and down through into the other domes, into the gym and everything else without ever passing somebody. And of course there is security cameras, but like Shelley was saying, in the busy, mornings, everything else, all it takes is somebody not being able to catch somebody on a security camera, and an unwanted visitor has complete access to our schools within seconds or minutes. And I mean, and this is how are we going to address that? If this happens in our community, how are we going to look those families and those parents in the eyes and say, well, we were getting to it, we were discussing it, we didn't have the money? Like, I mean, we can't just say it's never going to happen here. This is like, security is a top priority. It needs to be. It's an issue that's facing our nation, and it needs to be an issue that we face here in this community. Our parking lots are a problem. They're unsafe. The drop-off areas are not there, non-existent. We would like to build a drop-off pickup area off of 12th Street. This is between the Dome and 12th Street. This is a big grassy area. Most people use the 12th Street as a drop-off anyhow, instead of coming into that parking lot. A parking lot's kind of a nightmare. It's been a nightmare since it was built. So most parents drop off at the 12th Street and the kids just walk in. So it would be nicer if we actually made that a real thing. Is this out by the?
I'm not sure which address you're on that.
I think it's
By the auto.
It's by the locker. By the locker room. So this is out by the walkway to the football stand, which is lots of concerns about our accessibility for wheelchair accessibility and our ADA concerns. The gravel out there is really deep. It's hard to get a wheelchair through there, crutches, anybody with a disability trying to get through there. We have no sidewalk getting to the visitor stand, so it's really hard for people with disabilities to get to our visitor section. We do have a new little section over on the home side, but trying to get up to that part is also a big concern. Our bleachers, our bleachers themselves are kind of scary and a nightmare. I don't know if any of you guys have had the chance of watching a football game with a small child, but half of the time you're watching a football game and the other half of the time you have your legs wrapped around your toddler because they can fall through the bleachers. The bleachers are wobbly. And then our bathrooms at our, out there by the football field, our track, are also a mess. The sewer backs up, so there's kind of a smell. They're in bad shape and they need to be redone also. I know, and it's sports, that's what everybody says, but having the facilities available allows us to host events that we're missing out on. And when we are able to host sporting events, that brings revenue to our community. It brings people into our community that we need. And right now we don't have the facilities to do that. We can't host the state track meets. And when the school was first built, we actually was able to do that. And that's not something that we are even in the running for. And we're missing out on that. And that when people come over, that's money into our community. I've been to countless district events and state track meets, and I can't even tell you just those sweatshirts that the kids wear. I can't even tell you how much money I, as a parent, have spent on those silly sweatshirts that some local vendor is providing, that my son has lost every single one of them. But it's money into our community that we're simply missing out on because we don't have the facilities. So it's not just dumping money at sports programs. It's actually bringing money back into our community. And it's our track. I mean, this is a picture of our track. The whole thing's our track and our football field. And our football field is not safe either. It's lumpy, it has holes, kids twist ankles on it. It needs to be redone too.
Break arm.
Okay. These are our technical buildings. They're getting crowded. We're losing spots. We need more room to grow. Our technical fields are actually really growing. They're becoming very popular. They're becoming a very big popular course of fields for the kids, and they need room to grow. This is actually our engineering building, which looks like a big, awesome building, except that it's not even on campus. This is the one that's out there by Mountain West. So the kids are bused to it every day, which cuts into their learning time. And also every time kids get on a bus, there's a safety issue. They're out there away and they're on a road. So we would like to have those facilities all stay on campus, give them as much classroom time as possible, and keep them on campus. Okay, and just to finalize a few thoughts with you, like I told you, my husband is a pilot. 3 years ago, his company actually opened a base in Boise. And there's a lot of technical terms around the base that they opened in Boise. But basically, it started out really small. There was only 27 captains and 27 first officers. And in the 3 years that it's been there, it has actually tripled in size. There was only a handful of pilots that started there that we actually are friends with most of them. So there's only a handful that actually were from the Treasure Valley. So all of those other pilots that are being brought in are transplants from someplace. And most all of them are used to a commute. And some of them are coming up from California, I know. But they have no say in where they go. They're being transferred completely.
Don't like the white license plate.
Yeah. And some of them are from like Detroit and other places. But they're used to a commute. And they don't mind a commute because they drive there and then they stay and then they come back. And every week, my husband recommends Emmett as a place to raise a family. And every week, the feedback comes back about our schools. And these are people who are looking for communities to move into. And these are good and educated and dedicated people that are choosing not to come to Emmett or not to bring their families and not to bring their tax dollars or their income to Emmett because they believe that their families can be better educated elsewhere. And I know that some will say good that we don't want Emmett to grow, but we are going to grow. We are going to get the spillover from the Treasure Valley. There's nothing that we can really do about that. But we do have a chance to start to say what kind of people that we want in Emmett to grow with. Like we can either start to attract the right kind of people to Emmett, or we're going to grow with what is attracted to Emmett for the wrong reasons. And we need to address the issues of our school now. I want my kids to be in a nice environment. I want my kids to be in a safe environment. But I also want this for my community. I want us to be able to stand tall and be Husky proud once again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I feel like you guys all know me, but in case you don't, Aaliyah Nelson. I'm from OLA. I'm the PTO president. I have 5 kids, 4 of which are in school. And I am with the facilities committee, and I haven't been with them the whole time, so I think it's super cool. They've totally, just kind of circled their rooms around OLA and thought of us as we had the analysis on the school, and all of which you guys are familiar with. But I did want to kind of walk through and let you guys see the oldest school building. So a lot of the issues aren't so much on the outside. They are. It's a 100-year-old building, plus some. But this is the north side. There's obviously fascia and other issues. You can go through. This is the south side. That pole on the very front corner here, the one closest to you, that is not even touching the ground. It's just kind of wobbling there.
It's just for looks.
It's so cute, huh? Nice cute green pole. Anyway, This is the west side of the building. A lot of this material is from the old coal shed that we're using to update our new shed that we're building. So our Connex has all our shed and our supplies and all of the rest of our curriculums in there and painting supplies, and we're storing that there. East side, this is the main access to the library that the community uses, and you can see a big hole gashed in the wood. It's just getting bad up there. We left it and all of a sudden it's getting sadder. It was sad we left. This is the entryway. You walk into the school, it just has this square part. You go straight back into the bathrooms. You can go right or left into each classroom. And in each classroom, we have a good area. Our tech department, Ken, has been so good to us and taking care of all the school. And yeah, you can keep going.
Okay.
This is our playground, which you guys get deaned on all the time. Deaned, is that's an official word.
Yeah, it is. It's a technical word.
Technical. So it's close to the community's heart, but we realize that it's not up to par there. This is the music area. In each of the classrooms, they have kind of a corner notched out. Music is on the bottom, and up in the top right is kind of a printers where they have a copier. Now remember, we're not in school here right now, so this is just kind of leftovers of what not been taken down to the community center. So. The bathrooms are not ADA compliant. I am the new janitor there this year, and I'm so glad I don't have to clean there, because I like things to feel clean when you're done, so I can only, I understand how the janitors feel when they're cleaning something that's not cleanable anymore. So, this is our kitchen area, which is just a couple cupboards, a refrigerator, and one big wash tub. Super cool. Our library is actually the old Jackknife School, and they moved it up there, which is such fun history. But you can imagine what kind of shape it is in. And it's actually the school-owned building. However, the library is owned by our community and taken care of and managed by them. The offices for the school are in there as well. So they do all their reporting and stuff in that back office area. And well, so a summary. You guys know the inside of the school's in super bad shape. We've got a big estimate from the engineering outfits, and a lot of it is on the interior. So what you see, really, we could just go in there and still have a school party, but because of the inside, what they said, they kicked us out. And we're down at the community hall where they have mostly free rent. And the school has graciously paid utilities and is offered to doing repairs. They put in a phone line and the internet. And they've really taken care of our students. And we're so very grateful for all of the hard work that the teachers and staff did, as well as our community. The community center really is a really run building. They've got stuff in there all the time. So it's a big sacrifice having our kids there. And I'm so grateful to all of the community for valuing education and putting us first. They really did. They put us first, and that means so much to me. I moved to Ola because I wanted to be in a small town. I wanted a small school, and just like all of you who feel strongly about Emmett, I feel strongly about Ola. I've been there 4 years now, but they're my family. It's more than a small school. It's more than 26 students. It's more than 14 students. It is a home. And that's what our schools are for our kids, they're homes. And I'm so grateful that we can look at every part of our district. My kids are coming down to Emmett soon, and I want to see them successful. I want to see them proud. And I know that the pride I have for Ola is the same that I will have in Emmett when I get down here. And I wanted to let you guys know that our community's #1 goal is to keep a school there. So whatever it takes to make that happen, other than a modular school building, we are willing to work with you. We just put in a year's worth of work on building a shed. That's a lot of grit. People have grit, and I know it's there, but I know that the grit today is different. We have a whole different world that we're dealing with money, with government rules and requirements, and like the old school building, it's totally safe for everybody else, right? But on a government standard, we have so much more to do, so much more money that has to come up. And the way that we come up with sacrifice these days is different than the way that we used to do it 50 years ago. Everybody would have got a shovel, put their bags on, grabbed their hammers, and gone to work. Today, we are asking people to sacrifice money from their pockets. That's the way I feel like we have to do it. I'm in full support of a bond, and I know that the community will feel successful if they choose to sacrifice in the way that we can, in the way that we have to do it today. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, here we go. Okay, well, guys, first of all, thank you. I know that you have a zillion other things to do, as do all of you have a million other things on your plate. So we thank you for giving us this, again, a special opportunity to have this conversation. I am here at the end of our presentation and at the beginning of our discussion to kind of talk about what our team, our community team, has come up with for possible solutions. And I know that you are privy to that information, having heard it once before, but we do want to step through it and have some conversations along the way if you would like to. So our solution to all these problems, we've heard problem after problem from many of the schools in our district. And our solution to this as a community and as a community organization is to propose a bond, which I know you're all aware of, and we just now have to see what that's going to look like, right? We can go into that next one. So just for those of you who have not been in the loop from the start, we did, so many months ago, we've been working at this for a year now, so many months ago, we put out surveys and talked to community members and asked them, give us your feedback. What do you want to see in your community? What do you see as a solution to the problems existing in our schools? And we sent out a Survey Monkey survey. We had posted it in all kinds of different fashion. We gave links, we posted QR codes for people to just directly link to and take the survey. In the survey, we did ask, out of these 4 selections, what's your top choice? So it wasn't completely detailed on if we choose this, what are the other things that come? But these are the 4 choices that we gave. One was to build a new high school and move the middle school over to that high school. So that was one choice. One was to build a new middle school, because at that time we'd heard a lot of buzz and conversation about all of our problems would be solved if we simply had a middle school. And then we also talked about giving people an option to consider simply remodeling the Emmett Middle School. Because we as a group, and I know many of you were on that tour too, and have been on that tour a few times now, recognize that the middle school, it really, from a structural standpoint, is probably, well, without question, the one that has the most work to be done. So it made sense to put that out there. And then we also gave them the option to join the Do Nothing Club, which the Do Nothing Club is never a membership I would like to own, nor any, I'm sure, of you that are in this room right now. And that was the no change. Keep things as they are, say nothing, do nothing, be nothing. And also along this journey, had the opportunity to share some of our ideas with Rotary clubs, Kiwanis clubs, pretty much anyone that would listen and had an open mind to what was going on in our town. And the results from all those conversations and surveys, we can go on to the next slide, was that based on those 4 options, it was overwhelming that our communities shouted out that they wanted a new high school and that they wanted the middle school to be part of that solution to move over to the current high school. Now, I know some of us who have actually, been there from the beginning on that high school project, we're not super fans of how it looks. We're not super fans of the fact that it was the cheapest solution at the time, and I think on that 3rd bond election, then we finally got that because it was a gimmick, and for some reason Pied Piper came into town and we followed him out, and that was the solution that came through. It isn't attractive, but from the inside and the guts is in far better shape than our middle school is. And people in our town recognize that. So we came up with approximately like a 64% in support of that particular building.
The next closest there was around 22% saying they just wanted to build a new middle school. And in this survey, it gives us a pretty good idea that we would have the support for an actual effective, positive, successful bond, because many of the people that said, let's build a new middle school, if we're given an option for a more comprehensive plan, I believe would join in with the others. They just got to choose their top favorite in this section. Others chose that they just wanted to remodel the middle school. And please understand that this survey was given before we really dug very deeply into all of the needs of our town and our communities. We didn't really, at this point, have a lot of information about what's going on in the middle school, what's going on for growth. We hadn't shared any of that information. This was just off the top of your head, what would you vote for? And there were just a couple you could see that they were in the Do Nothing Club, but there was a very small minority. We'll go to the next one. And as we grew in this investigation, we sort of came up with several themes here. And as you might recall from our previous conversation, there was also a section on the survey that said, give us more feedback, write us some notes, write us some questions, share out some other information. And so putting our conversations and our meetings together with the survey and just that free forum, what's on your mind kind of section, we came up with these findings. So we concluded that the community would be more likely to accept a bond, and we haven't had a great history with successful bonds campaigns, as you saw from our previous slide. But that we would suggest that it would be, the chances of it being successful would go a lot or be increased if it was district-wide, comprehensive, and that it would touch many grades and address many issues that we see. We also determined that the community responses that were given in the response indicated that they wanted higher quality buildings, that they wanted new facilities, and that they wanted also for us to still be aware of financial constraints. So they want us to be financial stewards of our community. They don't want every child to have their own exclusive room to study in, or resting naps here and there. They want it to be efficient, they want it to be strong, and they want it to be withstanding of time. And I want those things too. One other point that we came out of was our third point up there, which was that although remodeling that middle school, which kind of at the beginning of this, again, a year ago, that sort of was some conversation that came out, that our conclusion was that it simply wouldn't solve our problems. It would be a short-term solution to a much bigger problem. And then we would be right back at the community saying, hey, we need this now fixed, or we need this now addressed. So although it was perhaps the least expensive and short-term solution, it didn't meet all of our needs. And some of those needs, which would be future growth, current growth, overcrowding that we're experiencing today, not just tomorrow, but already, and outdated equipment that's already in existence. So this option was not what we recommend for a solution. And this was not what our committee decided on and voted on. The recommendation that we do provide you, and this again was a very long, thoughtful process. Some of our committee members were like, are we gonna do something already? We've been talking for a year, what's happening? And yes, we do hope that today we will get some movement on some of our ideas and our thinking. But this is the recommendation that we, as a committee, voted on, approved, and are happy to present to you today. And are asking you to take action on today also. We decided that we would love to see in our community a new high school that would accommodate for the growth that we're experiencing and for future needs of students. We would also like to have special education to be a part of that building and to have it designed so that when we put it together, that there is room for those students to be a part of the traditional education of high school. We would also suggest that we can accommodate for the growing community that we are now seeing and experiencing, and not just build for how many students we have now. Because every year we get larger and bigger numbers of students coming to our towns and to our schools, and we need to be forward thinking. And I've loved being a part of this town for most of my life. And I've always felt that little strip of desert, where we see occasionally a cow or an antelope, between here and Eagle. That will insulate us. It's just, it's too unattractive for people to want to build in. And so it'll keep us secure and small, but it hasn't. We see Eagle coming this way every year. It seems to creep them a little closer. And people have discovered Emmett. So we are growing and we need to be able to accommodate those students. And on a good note, there's some pretty great kids that are moving into our town. There's some great families that are moving into our town. But if we want to keep them here and capture those great people, we need to address the needs of our town. We also would like, as part of that high school, to consider career technical. We've got some really great programs partnered with PERDA and the high school. And however you see fit, I would like to help and support the partnership to grow in that direction even further. There's amazing things, amazing teachers in both the high school and the traditional vein and in PERDA. And I want to support both sections. And I think our community does too. Another part of this comprehensive proposal is to move the middle school to that high school that we all think is so unattractive. Sorry, Wade. We think your building's a little ugly. We don't want to take it on you, but it is not attractive. We've tried fixes. We were brainstorming other solutions a moment ago on how to make it beautiful. But the fact of the matter is, we will need to remodel it to bring it up to some standards and some needs of the middle school students that would be occupying it. So there would be remodeling costs, definitely to address the safety concerns of that building, as we outlined earlier. That those stairs right up that building is, every time I walk in that building, it's something that you think of. It's an unfortunate thing in our world that we have to consider it, but we do. It's where we are. We definitely want to make sure that we have it for those middle school kids and make sure it's safe for them. Also, as part of this, we want to make sure that Black Canyon students, that they have their own building that they can be proud of, because this is an amazing product. If we could put it to business terms, Black Canyon a Black Canyon school is an amazing product that we have to offer our students here. It's a way to capture students that might need a little more support and that may just need a different way of learning and education. And they deserve to have their own facility. And we've concluded that the newer section of the middle school, the 1972 section, would be a really great personalized space for their school to be able to grow in. And they can have ownership of that space. We would definitely need some remodeling costs that would go with that, and to bring it to update it to their needs. And again, making sure that we have adequate safety for them, and also equipment for them for their learning environments. At this point, this was our recommendation. If you look down to that last point under Black Canyon and current middle school, at the time, it was sort of an idea that we might consider moving district office buildings there. But we do have a new superintendent, and quite frankly, I don't know what his wishes would be on that. So I would say he would be in on the design and the planning, and he may want to insert that group in one of the other facilities. I'm not sure how that would work. So we can always ask. And then that fourth component would be to the building that we're currently in. As my mom said as she walked in, I just can't forget that this was kindergarten at one time. And I can't forget that too, because I think this was my kindergarten classroom. But we would like this building to be returned to an elementary school to take some of that pressure off of Carberry, Shadow Butte, and just our community in general. We would really love to avoid modulars if at all possible. We think it's a terrible waste of tax dollars. And that, we have this building here that will need some renovations to bring it up to code and to standards for young children once again. We'll need to kick out the tech department and take over their space and get them and take out all their toys and put in other toys. No dig. They're not toys. What are they? They're tools. They're tools. Okay. Or they're models. They have models in there. We would also like to add a gym, because that was one of the things that we kept hearing over and over and over and over from families who have to wake up before 5 o'clock to bring their students and their children to sporting events. There's not enough space. There's not enough space for gyms. There's not enough space for all of our activities. And it really does impact children's daily experience when they have to wake up so early, work out so hard, and then try to pay attention to school and continue on. I know when my daughter was in that situation and had those 5:30 practices, at the middle school, she never missed so many days in her life. She was sick all of the time or exhausted. So it's not an adequate situation for our children to be found in. So we believe that adding in a gym to this building as it gets remodeled into an elementary school would be a great addition not only to the elementary school itself, but to our community that would certainly use it at any turn. Let's see. And we would also think that perhaps the developmental preschool that I know you all are aware of, that currently is housed in here, we think it might be a great fit to continue to stay in this program. So these are the recommendations that we give you. We have added a conversation point with Ola, and as we just previously spoke about here with Ola. Oh, there she is. Okay, she's back. We partnered with some Ola community members that I think just that distance from Ola to Emmett. They kind of joined the party a little bit late. I mentioned that they joined the party after the music started, but they still showed up before the dance was over. So they're here and they are part of our district, and they have, as you well know, outstanding needs there. So although I cannot speak for our community and for our community group, our committee, we formally sort of ratified this proposal to you before all of Ola's needs were really brought to complete light in our community meeting. So I can only say as a person, not as a committee, that I would tax you with considering their needs too as you go forward with a bond proposal. And there were several ideas that were bounced around. I know that there are some that definitely are not on the please do not do list, right? Or they are on that. There's considerations about deeding the current building to the community because the standards for them keeping it up is different than the standards that a school would need to meet. Building a new structure is something I know that's been on the table. These are all things I'm sure you know, but I'll just say them for those who may not know. And there's also the topic of consolidating Sweet and Ola, which I know I felt like a cold wind shift over my body when I said that, because I know people maybe just shuddered with that one. And then to remodel the current building to keep the historic qualities there and bring it up to date. And then there may be other solutions that we have not yet, turned over, but that will be in your hands. That part will be in your hands for sure. And we'll go to my favorite slide. Again, you've seen this before because if you've ever seen something that I've shared, Mason is usually there. Some of my children are part of them always. And again, you've heard this, but those of you who are unfamiliar faces and have not heard this, this is a picture of my son Mason, who is now he went through school all the way through. This was his elementary school too. This is a picture of him and his team when they just had won their state football championship. First time in a really darn long time. And it was a really great reason to celebrate. And I want all of us to have that kind of exhilaration to be able to celebrate how our schools can grow and change and meet the needs of our current student body and our community. I want us to be able to have that sort of spirit as we move forward and problem solve what we have in front of us here. What's next is to approve this recommendation with some modifications, I'm sure, with considerations for Ola. You as a board, I know we've shared this with you, and I know the burden is great, but it will be your task to determine construction details, construction timelines, cost timelines, and also it will be the board's opportunity to put your mark, to leave your mark on a community in a positive way. The older I get, the more money's great and material things are awesome. My husband would probably say his car that his business lets him drive is really awesome, but it comes down to relationships and supporting one another. And that's what we do really well in small towns. And this is another piece of that. This is how we can support not just our community now, but down the road. This is something that each of you sitting here, for those of you who are up for election in November, you will be tasked to continue on. And those of you who are moving on to other things, this will still be your opportunity to leave your mark and say, you know what, I did something that changed the landscape of my town. I did something that made a positive impact on the students of our community and for the families that are here too. I would just now also invite you to celebrate this opportunity that we have in front of us, and to think hard on how we can ratify this agreement and move forward. We do have a written summary that I did read before, and I will read it one more time to you. This was drafted by our committee, and it pretty much states where we are. Our committee acknowledges the amount of effort that it will take both the administration and all of you who are here now and will be coming back to us in November to bring this to fruition, to bring this to reality. We believe we have completed our mission that we set forward as a committee to create a bond proposal through the decision-making process that has unanimous support from our committee. Unanimous was a really, and we discussed this, unanimous is a really big word, and it's a huge thing to take on to a diverse group of people coming together from all aspects of the community. But I think we came really close to coming up with things and proposals and ideas that our community can really support and that our committee got behind. We achieved this through commitment and compromise. I was proud of the work that we did, and I'm proud of where we are right now. We pounded through some details. We got to some really deep conversations about our schools and what we need. And we didn't all leave. I never left a meeting being frustrated with a single soul, because everyone just came there to get information and to participate in the process, and I appreciated that about them. We also believe that this recommendation will create a long-term solution for our community, while offering our children the safest and most supportive environments to learn. And I could handle just about anything, but those news articles and those trainings that we have to do as educators, just in case we have an active shooter that enters into our building, it weighs on you. It weighs on a soul. It weighs on you to bring little second graders into a closet and say, okay, if we have an issue, we all need to be quiet, and we need to make sure that we play the quiet game, and you try to make it as the least impact on their hearts as possible. But it's taxing on a soul. It's taxing on them. It's definitely taxing on the teachers. And it has to be taxing on our parents who have children that they send to us, where we have to do drills to make sure that if somebody comes in with a gun, that they know what to do. I was listening to NPR. I could go on forever. I was listening to NPR, which is a great way to get news. And they were talking about how there's these businesses that push into schools and train their teachers and their staff on what to do when there's an active shooter. And they go through the scenarios of, we're going to barricade, we're going to be quiet, we're going to run, we're going to fight back. And I think this is our opportunity to fight back as a community before we ever get into a situation where we have to put a kindergartner, a first grader, or a second grader in an opportunity where they have to learn how to fight back to an intruder. So this is our opportunity as a community to say, we're going to think forward, we're going to try to make our buildings as secure as possible for you, and we are going to devote dollars that are hard for us to part with to make some of those things happen. I have gotten off topic. We request that the board approve this. That's an important part. We request the board approve this recommendation and that we can move forward with the bond proposal. Originally, when we started this process, we wanted November. November is knocking on our door, and that's thrown out. We have now met, and we've decided that May might be a better time to have that happen on that election. We do also appreciate all the work that you have done over the summer. We gave you a pause and kind of went silent so that you could do the work that you had in front of you. But now it's go time, and we need to make some good decisions here. Let's see, we believe that our proposal has identified goals, and we are now in the discussion of moving forward. We're ready to take action. We will text you with the timeline and with the cost, to gather the costs, the actual costs, the scope of the work. We will support you in all aspects. We will be here for you to jump onto yet another committee to say, how do you want this to look or how do you want that to look, to give you feedback. We offer you our assistance and we in this process, and we support you in the decision that you are about to make. I know that we are all always trying to make everyone happy in the world. We are all always trying to save money and consider all of the things that might come our way. But I would encourage you to know that that prices for land and businesses or building costs continue to rise. And right now we kind of have this really nice bubble of time where interest rates are down a little bit. So those two things colliding might just well be our time. So that's kind of where we're at, fellas and ladies. Hit me with some questions.
I have a
Hit us
question.
with some questions, because I do not have all the answers, but we do collectively have the answers.
I do have a question. When you said that you went and presented to the Kiwanis and the Rotary, was that after the May facility that when you presented?
I presented I gave an update to the Kiwanis group after the May election. And then the Rotary was before. The Rotary was before while we were doing the survey. Yeah, we were sharing the survey information that we hadn't yet. You know, we were sharing that we were putting out a survey.
And did you play them the slideshow? Like,
I played them like a smaller version of it because I only had a few minutes.
oh,
Yeah.
right.
And I needed to eat pizza, so I had to be fast. I was hungry. It was the middle of the day. Yeah. Other questions you guys might have? I know you've done the legwork. I know that you know way more than probably all of us. But we're willing to have a conversation, and I'm sure that I don't know what our format is for this evening, but there may be others that might have insight too that have been part of this process with us. If you feel free to ask them questions too. All right. Anything else?
Madam Chairman, Madam Chair, I do appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I gotta say I'm not really in support at this point because we need some options and some numbers, and I'm not going to make decisions until I have some hard numbers and options that I can make, choose from. I'm a little concerned too about your survey. I think those early surveys, like polls, or the earlier they are, the less likely they tell us what the election will be. But I do think that this is something we need to move forward, looking at and deciding on.
Yeah.
I'm really not willing to commit myself to the recommendation of a new high school at this point.
Okay, so if we ask for a vote tonight, that would be a no from you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't think we're going to do that. But I'm not.
And could I jump in real quick?
Sure.
Here is just something that I need to share with all of you. Our committee has been working hard for a year, and we've been tasked to do this job by the school board. And you may or may not have been on the board at that time when we were asked to do that.
Right.
And I understand that. But I do understand also the eye rolls and the frustration and and just what are we doing now? What are we having to do now from our committee? These are families. These are people who have sporting events that they should be at. These are people that have put time, energy, and thought into this. It's not just us going, this is our idea. We've put deep, thoughtful practice into this. And we would like you, with or without numbers, to at least have a vote tonight so that you can move it forward. And the vote may look something like we move to approve further investigation of your proposal, and as we gain numbers from our estimates, that we can put together a reasonable bond to the community in May. And that might be something that we can both compromise on, because I understand it's kind of like that chicken and egg thing. We can't find numbers until we have a formal kind of proposal going down the road. And it's kind of that guess. I know we've got a few numbers out there, but I understand needing to firm that up. But that will be work that your work will we'll start from that. We were tasked with finding out information from the community. And we've gone a little bit above by trying to find some numbers, but that's not our area of expertise. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I do think it's something we need to take under consideration.
Mhm.
At what I'm pointing out is I'm not willing to buy in at this minute. And I think it's something that it's going to require some time. So, and there's going to be some changes along the way.
Mhm. Yeah,
So-
well, so how about questions? Are there any more questions? And then we can.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If you want to go, Jefferson?
No, I was just gonna ask if the superintendent can weigh in, since this is in your wheelhouse and you'll
Well-
be tasked with a lot of the
Absolutely.
strategy.
So, Madam Chair, I after listening through this conversation, the conversations we've had, I think what they're asking is for this board to give direction is a good target for us May. And if the board agrees that let's look at May as a time and taking their recommendation, and then you as a group, because again, it becomes your decision what is involved in that bond and what is involved in the building structure. But it gives me a target saying, okay, in May, we need to be here. It would give us another target of by January, Craig, you need to bring us exactly what we're looking at as a bond or whatever date you say to move forward. Or by then we move back and say, okay, we're gonna have to push it to August. So as far as I think what they're asking for is that a committed time? You're not committing to what it looks like. You're committed to let's put a target out there as May. Let's come back with all the options, make a decision. You have to make a decision by March. That's the date. By our March board meeting, you gotta say we're running in May or we're not. And that gives you some time, but it also shores up because there's things you'll need to do. You're gonna need to look at a construction management team. You're gonna need to look at a design team. You're probably gonna want some drawings if you're going to look at a high school. But then getting some good firm estimates is what you're gonna want. So that's what I would be doing in a small group between now and whatever date you say. And then that gives you more information. That gives Mr. Hamilton, it gives you the information you need to say, okay, I'm behind this or I'm not at that point. And if at that point you're not behind it, then you move forward and push it to another date or you make changes. Is that kind of what you're asking?
It is, but we're also asking that we do move more quickly on this issue, as we know we're already to September. We're almost to my birthday. And we started this a year ago around my birthday, and we are wanting to be able to help support and promote and advertise in a way that you all would not be able to do as part of the school board. And we recognize that it takes a great deal of time and effort to campaign for something, and to put even the time investment that we would need to for video productions and leaflets and all of those things. And it will be an unsuccessful bid if we wait until March to decide what it's going to look like. We will need to educate the community starting 3 months ago till May to get all the information out to the public that they need and that they deserve to make a good decision. And I think if we delay the conversation and put it off more and more, and it's not going to come together. And we're seriously at a crossroads. We're at a crossroads of, do you want to spend our money, our limited money that we have on modulars, because that's where we're at. We are right at that point where we need more space. And with our forecast for numbers, we're behind the ball already. We're behind the 8 ball at this point. It will take 2 years to get a new building. It will take maybe 3 or 4 to get all the other pieces to fall in line. So what will Emmett look like in 4 years with our numbers? It's definitely going to be larger. So I would encourage you to at least entertain and maybe make a motion that you as a committee have heard our proposal. We'll take our proposal into deep consideration, as well as considering the needs of OLA, and take action by putting something together that will meet our needs. And this is what our community has said.
Mr.
Madam
Jones?
Chair, I can't tell you how I appreciate it. And seriously, I've sit through these meetings with you and helped move it along the way.
Yep.
This is a broad brush across our community that the committee has brought forward. What if we put these numbers together and it exceeds our ability to bring up a bond?
Well, I think we'd have to, that would be part of your job to share with our community what our number one, number two, number three needs might be.
So you would be willing to put a number one, number two, number three on this proposal, so we may have some directions.
This is just Jody talking, but I would want a swath. I would want a section of things committed to, as opposed to choose between, if this is what you're saying, choose between option A, B, C, or D, because those are not successfully run bonds. Those tend to fail before they even get out of the gate.
I'm not asking that.
Oh,
That's not, I'm asking if we put these numbers together and as a board member, the fiduciary responsibility is pretty heavy on our shoulders.
Yeah.
And I forget what our limit is. Is it 80 million?
Yeah, I think it's creeping closer to that. I think the last time we looked, I don't know if you have information, I know it was hovering like at 72. I think it went up to 76. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was, does that sound in the ballpark? Yeah.
Do you have that?
Madam Chair, we do have that. It's gone up from the 72. It's closer to 80 million right now, and each year it'll go up. But Mr. Jones, I believe their recommendation is that these are the buildings that they think are the priorities. So what they're asking us and what they're asking you as a board is as a target date in May to run a bond. And to clarify, that's as late as we could actually make a decision as March. You need to have that decision made as quickly as possible. But what Terry is asking, or Mr. Jones is asking, is that once we start to find those numbers, if we find out that we can't do everything that's in the recommendation, we as a board, or you as a board, will make the decision, these are our priorities. If it's the high school, if it's what it is, you make that decision and put it out there to the voters. It's really not up to the facility committee. They've given you the recommendation. Now we need to make the priorities of what we're going to do. Now, will they support portions of it? That's completely up to them as a committee. But is that kind of where we're headed? Does that make sense?
I think that's where we're headed, yeah.
And I would say the same thing, is if the committee has a target, or if the board has a target, you want to run a bond in May, we've got to get on this pretty quick, because May's
right.
It can be done, but decisions of what those numbers look like and some of those things have to be done quickly. I probably would, once you have an idea, January would be as late as I would go, as far as when that decision is made, are we running it? Because that only gives you 5 months to really, and it starts now. I mean, if you say tonight, we're going to start working in May, the publicity towards that starts now. It needs to start now. What that will look like and the amount it's going to be, we won't know until we get those numbers and what we can do. That makes sense? So, but that's the decision I think you're looking for. So, and it's a lot of work, and it's not going to be just the 5 or 6 of you. It's going to be a lot of people involved in this. So,
All right, committee. So what do you think?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
Bounce it over.
Mr. Teeter.
the only decision I can make that's easy for me to make is Ola needs a school. That's number one that I see. We've got kids without a school in a community. High school, if you ask me tonight, I would probably vote that down. But we do have to address it. And I'm not saying we don't need to have the bond to address everything, but one seems to feed off the other. We get to high school, we gotta do this, we gotta do this, we gotta do this.
Yep, it's
And
comprehensive.
it's very complex and very costly. And I'm with the other members of the board, I don't know that we can afford all that. And until we have the numbers and the options, I think the only decision we can make is, yes, we would like to have a bond in May, but that's about all I can say, other than I'd go for Ola.
Madam Chair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and thank you to the committee very much for your due diligence and all the time committed and time away from family and all those things. I do feel it's 100% responsibility of this board to accept the recommendation as a foundation moving forward for all the reasons the speakers here tonight gave. primarily more than anything, the safety of our children. If we wait till August, people are tuned out, family vacation and all those sorts of things. So that's not an ideal time to run a bond. I personally, as a board member for the longevity to which I serve on this board, am committed this fall to doing whatever work is needed in correspondence and correlation with the facility committee to at least come up with numbers based off that recommendation so that we have a hard foundation to decide upon. Because if we just flounder on not knowing what the numbers are, we're never going to know what the numbers are. And putting the priority first and foremost is the most important thing, to where we can basically channel and funnel this thing down to if we have to have an option A or a list of priorities. But I'm in full acceptance of using this as a foundation.
Would you be willing to just make a motion?
Oh, yeah.
So that you can begin that
And then we
process
can open
initially?
that for discussion. But yeah, I would like to make a motion that we use the committee's recommendation as our platform to start the study and the due diligence to move forward with May being our deadline for running a proposal to the community of Jim County to pass a bond with the utmost importance of doing this in the quickest and most diligent way so that we can properly advertise and be proactive in educating our community. And so this isn't just a shot from the hip kind of measure.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I think I'm just a dink in the community.
You're pretty nice, Dink.
Yeah.
That dual income, no kid.
I'm a firm believer that we need to do something for this community. I don't know that we'll be able to do everything that has been proposed. I just really don't think that that's going to be a reality. But we need to move forward. I'm with Mr. Teeter. We have 24 kids or 27 kids, whatever, that aren't in their own school right now. I've put two. My middle child's going to graduate. My oldest one's already graduated from here. And I'll tell you what the selling point for me on this was, because I'm a larger landowner, but I also rent from a couple of large landowners. And I went to them and I specifically asked them, both of them, expecting a completely different answer than what I got. And both of them looked at me and they said, we have to move forward as a community because people did it for me. And so I was not expecting that from the people when I spoke to them. And so I am completely on board with moving forward to get numbers at this time, because if we don't, land prices aren't going to get any cheaper. Interest rates are going to go up. That's the inevitability of it. And so we can't stay at an impasse. So let's get the numbers, and I second the motion.
Madam Chair, I have one last thing and then I'll shut my trap. But the thing that really resonates for me in your proposal is a long-term solution, which hits on a lot of different areas, especially converting this facility back into elementary school, which is going to alleviate some of those strains on our other elementary schools. That's just smart money in the bank right there. And of course, I'm sympathetic to Ola and those kinds of things. I still think if we're going to remodel the high school and turn it into junior high, I want a new roof on it, at least make it aesthetically pleasing. But those are just, and of course, finding land for a high school, but that'll be all part of our study and coming up with hard numbers. So anyway, thank you. That's enough for me.
Mr. Jones?
Madam Chair, you just scared me with your presentation.
You did.
Yes.
I am scary.
You made a statement in your presentation that said, what happens? How do we respond to a community if there's an incident? And we say, well, there just wasn't enough money. We couldn't make that decision today.
Yeah.
that that's something I don't sleep well on because I have thought that same thing. And yes, I could support an effort to go forward with this and see where we can go. My fear is the numbers are going to scare us all, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't go forward. So,
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with that, Terry. I did a test trial myself, went into the middle school, and I was all the way upstairs, halfway down the hallway before I was stopped. And safety is huge. And I was down at the high school, the track, football field. I left at halftime just because of not just because we're losing, but because that too, but because just the bleachers and the facilities. I don't know how the concession stands can have the concession stands with the bathrooms in the back, food and something else.
Extra stuff.
And I'm glad that Ola is, we need to think of, they're part of our district, I don't like neglect. They're not even on our wall over here, the schools are at. But I'm thankful that it is going to be scary with the numbers, but I think we need to move forward, and I'm all.
If I could add one more thing along those lines. In our conversations just the other day, it was pointed out that someone did some house counting and said there are 40 new homes that just literally popped up. They felt like overnight. And with another subdivision that's slated to go at the base of Old Freeze Out. Some of you, I'm sure everybody knows where Old Freeze Out is at this point. But we're growing. And the greatest thing about making this decision now is that those people that move into our community, who fill up those homes and who buy those 1 acre lots to move into a great town, they are going to be part of that solution. They're going to be spreading that tax base over the course of more people so that the burden is lessened on you and everyone. So that's what we're planning for the growth, but it's also part of the solution for what we're doing today.
Yeah, I just went to the museum. Mr. Butici gave a presentation, and Star is at 11,000. It's the fastest growing community in Idaho, and people are coming.
Yeah.
I want something to be. I've lived here.
Yeah.
Jack and Jill preschool.
Yeah.
Days. I want something to be.
To leave your mark on. I mean, that's part of it too. Solving the problem, making the hard decisions. Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'm going to abstain on this. I really appreciate the work you've done. I appreciate the way you carry yourself. But I think that going for a May bond is going to be kind of an impossible date. We'll see.
Okay.
And I'm not going to try and stand in the way. I'm not running for re-election.
Yeah.
But I want any bond that comes out of my term to be reasonable and doable.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm not totally convinced of that. But I'm not going to stand in the way at this point. But I think there's a lot of questions going to have to be asked.
Oh, for sure.
And will be asked.
Yeah, and I appreciate your work here. I know you've done a lot of hard, tricky conversations over the last month, and I appreciate it.
It's just part of. It's why I got the big pay.
Yeah. Hey, us too.
Yeah.
Mr. Helms has something to say.
Every decision that we make has a cost to somebody, right? And sometimes when we choose to not move forward with something, it impacts other people in ways that you don't even know. I'll share something. You have an athlete, your school, who has been working really hard since the 6th grade. He's a sophomore this year. At the end of his freshman year, he was the #1 pole vaulter in the nation. He returns this year as a sophomore, #10 pole vaulter in the entire nation of all high schools. He didn't get that training from Emmett. We don't have the facilities for him. His dad has now, after just purchasing 5 new pole vaulting poles, has put out $20,000 in equipment for this kid to be where he's at. None of that came from the schools of Emmett. Even the pit, the landing pit that he uses was purchased by his dad because we don't have the equipment that's safe for him to land. That's almost $25,000 that we've put out for this kid to be where he's at. We haven't been in Emmett a long time, about 6 years, 7 years, I guess it's been. But we're committed to being here and helping our schools. I don't want another family to have to go through what we've gone through, or maybe another family miss out on an athlete being able to be trained at a school. We take this kid to Boise. He's trained at every high school in the Treasure Valley by coaches that have the equipment that can help him. He gets training from Olympic coaches as well in Boise, which we're very fortunate to be able to do that. But it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. There's athletes that can be a lot better than they are today if they have the training and they have the facilities. We don't have that here. Last year during track season, when Caldwell and Ridgeview came to our track meet, they saw the condition of our track and our pole vault pit. Our pole vault pit was used from Caldwell High School. The coaches said, "We're not having district here, it's not safe." So we missed out. We missed out on the revenue from the track meet. We missed out on the revenue in our local businesses just because we've neglected these facilities for so long. You know, my example is one kid, one small kid, that the decisions that we make here to not move forward, if that's what we're doing, has a huge impact on someone in the community, not just you. I don't know how many of you have paid $25,000 in taxes in the last couple of years on your property. I haven't, but it's still costing me in other ways. And I'm sure that other parents have had to do the same thing because of the facilities that we have. Busing our kids to other schools. I was on the phone just yesterday with the University of Texas coach talking about my son. He said, "What are you doing in Emmett? Get that kid into a 5A school where he can get some coaching and some training in a facility that works for him." I don't want to do that. I could, but I don't want to. So we need facilities. I need you to reconsider maybe, the negativity that we've had. And I went through the last bond. I was on that committee. And I know there's a lot of people that voted it down simply because they didn't want their taxes to go up. That's a poor reason to not support our kids. I'm having a bad farm year, so I don't want my taxes to go up. We've got to be smarter than that for these kids.
Thank you.
Travis Hart, I want to impress upon, so it's an opportunity, I think, to speak to the board that I want to have going forward as you're making your decision, is to not lay up short on the proposal and to come up with something that's viable. I think Emmett has done a great job in the time that I've been here, which is since the late 70s when my family moved in, of doing a few people doing a lot to make good enough good enough. I look back and I see my old long jump coach back there who I jumped out of the pit at the high school, so they made the pit longer. And to make it better, they went and got a conveyor belt from Boise Cascade to put down so we could do the runway. And it's those type of people. It's Mark Helms doing the stuff for his son. It's when I go to our schools now, I look at all the effort that goes in by the teachers to go above and beyond with what they have from resources. My wife is a teacher, and I've seen what she's done. I've seen what the principals do at our high schools to make good enough better. I think we're at a point, and I think the community and I think would get behind something that's not just good enough, but something that's good, something that's great. And so when you're looking under your proposal and when you're putting numbers to, and you have that concern of getting up to that $80 million mark and what the impact that will be on the community, I will tell you that when you invest in something, and I'm in an occupation where I hire executive level managers to run facilities, and the shape of the facility, the brand of the facility, the condition of the facility, the newness of the facility has a direct correlation to the level of talent that applies for those positions that I'm able to pull a talent pool from. When I look back at our recent superintendent search, and I went into the individual rooms for the 4 candidates that the pool was narrowed down to, I would say that we got very fortunate to have a candidate that applied that has an emotional connection to Emmett. Otherwise, I think we would have been left with the 3 that were there plus one other that you would have boiled it down to. I think we got very fortunate that Craig Woods is an Emmett High School graduate. I thought he was head and shoulders, and I'm biased because he's my friend and I graduated from high school with him, but I thought he was head and shoulders above the applicant pool that we had. And the only reason, and I don't know this for sure, and I haven't had a conversation with Superintendent Woods about this, that he applied is because he has an emotional attachment to Emmett. It's not because the job was a peach, and it's not because it was going to be an easy road into his retirement years, it's because the facilities are there and established. He's a talented guy, and he could have gone a lot of places without the obstacles and without the things, the hurdles to clear that we have for him here. We got fortunate and we got lucky. And I think Emmett has gotten lucky for years and years and years with the level of talent that we have in our schools, the teachers, the administrators that have done more than I think other schools have to do and more that they are paid to do and that they should do to make good enough better. And I would really want to impress on you, and I know you're concerned, and I know, Terry, you're concerned that it's a big number. I think the community, if it's a well-organized campaign, if they know what they're going to get, if they know that the money is being spent responsibly, how it spreads across the entire platform of the schools in the Emmett School District 221, I think the community would get behind that. And I think, in my opinion, to lessen that and not give them the opportunity to get behind that and address partial needs or follow up or lay up a little bit short because we're trying to save $10 million over the course of 20 years would be an injustice to the community, in my opinion. If the community, you're proposing a bond, if it gets shut down and the community doesn't want better, then that's the community's decision. We can run it again. We can go back in a year. We ran one in 2018. We came close to running one in 2019. We can run one in 2021 if necessary. But I think we should not give the opportunity, we should not miss the opportunity to do it right the first time and give the voters the opportunity to stand up and say, we support something that's comprehensive. We support something that addresses the needs currently and future growth and make sure that good enough is just not good enough, that we go for something that's better than adequate, that's something that truly meets the needs. So, thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. I just wanted to follow up real quick to Britt, what Mr. Helms was talking about with the previous bond. And it's sort of a bit of an elephant in the room. And I respect the Farm Bureau very much. I grew up the grandchild of farmers in this valley. But one of the digs on the previous bond was that it was rushed along. It didn't give us anything new. And also that it wasn't inclusive. It was only district personnel that were part of that committee. If we want to sit here and say we didn't have an opportunity to be a part of this committee, it'd be an all-out lie. So this committee here is very committed to including anybody and everybody and also offering a foundation for something that's new and does, offer a broad stroke across the entire district. So I just want to draw that distinction that this is a very inclusive committee and an inclusive process moving forward as opposed to the previous one. And it's all about looking towards the future and not in the past.
Ronnie, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Jefferson made the motion, or
I'm prepared to vote.
We're ready to vote. I second it.
for a second? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Bob?
I still had another comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I had two things to say is, to the voters out there, in the future, we're gonna have a whole new group of voters. As you say, people are moving into our valley, and the voters, if you want your vote to count, now's the time to vote, to plan ahead for our future. Secondly, I think May's a good time. I'm not convinced that our vote as a motion has been made to accept the proposal is the proper motion. I mean, I would vote for the May date, subject to us deciding what's going to be in the bond by January or whatever date we're moving along. But I want to know what the dollars are before I'm committed.
Can I ask what is the official motion?
I only got part of it because he
Okay.
had a very
I
long
think it
one.
was, I think it was.
But it was to do it as a base.
Yeah.
It was
It's
used,
the foundation from which we're working from. It doesn't mean it's set in
Right.
stone, but it gives respect and notice to the work that's been done.
Define those numbers.
Is that the
Is
way
that
you look at it?
clarified, Bob?
Well, that clarified, I didn't hear a date in your motion either, but I would like to have the date.
He did
he
say
did say
May.
May.
Okay, then I will support that.
Can I roll call vote? Bob?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Jefferson?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
I abstain.
Aye.
I think we should clap now.
I'd just like to, this is a great effort, and I can't impress upon you much how I appreciate the process. And this community is looking at some hefty bills. We have a bond already on the books that's going to be decided in November for a fire facility. We have a dam that is in need. It's almost 100 years old, like Ola. And that's going to take some decisive work. We got a swimming pool that's hanging in the wind out there. This community has a lot of needs, and we're going to really have to come together and shoulder these needs as we prioritize them. And I hope that they look out there as a top priority in this community.
Can you make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I said aye.
Nay, I just.
No, not after Ola. That was way too close.